Okay, I think we're back. All right, I think we're back. Good, 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 good. So my apologies for the technical difficulties, but we're back and we're excited. I'm just going to jump right into it. Um, so welcome back. The first go around was a little bit of a technical nightmare, but we got to figure it out. And um, my dad always likes to joke. That's why we work towards PhDs because we can solve these problems, I guess. My name is Thomas Cutler. I'm the Chief Science Officer of Aceli Global. So happy to be here with you tonight. Um, and just wanted to give you a very hearty, warm welcome. It's a beautiful day here in Utah. We had a great day, and it's wonderful. And I hope each and every one of you are surviving and thriving in this new environment of COVID-19, the coronavirus, and keeping safe. I think the simple practices go a long way in terms of flattening curves of infection rates, and we're certainly doing our part of doing that here in the Aceli Global. We have quite a few of our employees working remotely, and of course, doing all the best we can in terms of best practices for product distribution and maintaining clean warehouse environments and so forth with our dispatchments and sale and excuse me, and also our shipments. So just as a quick overview, I have some information I'd like to share for all first timers, people who are here first for the first time. Aceli is kind of an odd, not odd. Aceli is not a native English word. It's a word that comes from Swahili, the Swahili language. It means pure origin, uh, Genesis, and we've adapted it for our purposes to mean a new beginning, a pure beginning, because we're a company that's dedicated to health and wellness and prosperity to those who are joining our ranks and joining our movement. We have a very simple philosophy when it comes to products, to nutritional supplements, functional foods, um, and that's really simply all of the good and none of the bad. We're clearly trying to avoid all the bad. But we do that with a purpose. We're very conscientious of the people who consume them. Many of us here at Aceli, we formulate products that we like to consume and that our families like to consume, our children, our wives. And so we're very conscientious about what we're taking into our bodies, understanding that the old adage of "you are what you eat," but really that good health starts with good nutrition. And so we're extremely conscientious of that, and we design and create products that are really for all ages, all genders, um, and we do that again following a very simple idea and simple philosophy. One to make sure that products are safe to consume. They're effective, meaning that every time you use the product, you can count on the product um, delivering the said benefits that come with it. They're products that are very easy to consume. They're products that are meeting natural organic demands. They usually have a very unique composition in terms of their components, and a lot of that is because we really like to um, channel the distribution of these products through our independent distributors who are found all over the world: Korea, South Korea, the United States, Mexico, Colombia, the Dominican Republic, and other countries around the world, from Spain to Taiwan, the Philippines. We're very excited about the growth that we're experiencing, even in this somewhat turbulent time. Okay, so let's just keep moving. Uh, one thing I think that's really interesting is the products are very easy to consume, but they also fit into a very simple philosophy when it comes to health and wellness, a philosophy that's really designed around four pillars of health, all of which are designed to improve the quality of life right here, right now, no matter what stage of life you're in. That's a fairly tall task when you think about things, and but the products we have a very simple line of products that you can see here on my screen. And what I'd love to talk about today is a relatively new product to our product line called Peak Protein. Um, so let me get a little bit of background. We in this core health philosophy. Core is really the essence of what is good health and good nutrition, and core is involves four very simple steps to good health and wellness. And our products are designed to match the behaviors within those four principles and complement those behaviors and help you achieve those behaviors. The core system involves four steps: cleanse, optimize, rejuvenate, and energize. And peak protein really falls into the latter three letters of optimize, rejuvenate, and energize. And I'll talk a little bit about how peak protein addresses those um, as a protein supplement. Let's get a little bit of some background into the product. There are four macronutrients that are found in our dietary system today: carbohydrates, fats, proteins, and alcohol. We may have an overabundance of focus right now in the COVID-19 situation where we're really elevating our consumption of alcohol. And but tonight I really just want to focus on this macronutrient, protein. And just as a little bit of background, I'm a protein biochemist by training. My undergraduate degrees in biochemistry, but my formal doctoral trainings in biochemistry and molecular biology with a very specific focus on protein biochemistry. So I love proteins. I love a lot of my thesis work was studying the thermodynamic um, and molecular structures of proteins, and I spent an inordinate amount of time in labs designing chimera proteins, hybrid proteins, studying how they acquire their three-dimensional structure. Um, and just to give you a little background, going back way back into our biology and biochemistry days, proteins are, if you think of proteins as a long strand of simple building blocks, and these building blocks, depending on their size, depending on their polarity, if they have positive or negative charges, or if they're kind of big greasy molecules, all of those building blocks in a specific sequence drive really immediate secondary structures, which are shown here, maybe in this case an alpha helix. And those secondary structures then interact with each other to form tertiary and then possibly quaternary structures, depending on the function and the role of a protein. And this amino acid, the structure of a protein, is what determines, excuse me, its biological function. And proteins really are the substance of life. And what I mean by that is the biological functions of proteins are wide ranging, from everything from structural components within our skin and in our cells to hormonal signaling. Insulin is really a protein. They're the primary component of muscles. So there's contractile functions. They're the primary focus and function or component of immunoglobulins. And so as we're thinking about our immune systems, and we're kind of freaked out about things, having a proper understanding of proteins and their function is really critical. So as a macronutrient, proteins play a very critical role within our body. And so insufficient levels of protein um, can lead to some um, rather serious health problems and health issues. Um, One of the things that as a macronutrient, protein also functions as a role of energy. So you remember core, energize. Um, Proteins can be a great source of energy, and I'm going to expand on this a little bit. So as we're reaching and delving, how many of you working from home or working, away, have a bowl of snacks or goodies that you're just kind of absent-mindedly putting into your mouth and consuming? And I call it the Corona 15, 15 pounds that we've all gained since we've just been isolated in a way. Hopefully, you're not doing that. But protein, because of its properties and because of how it's digested, really is a very satiating macronutrient, much more satiating than, say, carbohydrates, and in a different way, satiating than fats. You might find if you are not eating sufficient levels of protein that it's hard to maintain a healthy body weight. And clearly, this is a critical thing. One of the things about proteins is as we age, we typically lose muscle mass, um, and this is an important element. One of the reasons why muscle or peak protein is part of this rejuvenate category is because of the benefits that come from protein supplementation, in particular with people maybe a little more mature in their age. You can kind of see that again as you kind of peak in your mid to late 30s, and then muscle mass tends to decline, and this can lead to increased falls. Sarcopenia is a very real element that comes involved and is involved in that. And why peak protein can help fill in those gaps is um, eh, as you supplement with protein, you're assured that you're containing the correct the right levels of amino acids, and these amino acids again are those building blocks that form muscles. Now you've got to also take the added step of working out and doing some resistance training. That might scare some people. Resistance training meaning lifting weights, but that doesn't have to be going to a gym, which you can't do anyway right now. But it can be those are simple body weight exercises, and there's all sorts of great tools online right now. Searching YouTube for some really simple at home body weight exercises are a great way of maintaining lean muscle mass even as you mature and as you age. I bring this up because one of the things, I just turned 45, so I'm right in my midlife crisis. I bought my Ferrari or my Lamborghini. I'm doing a great job of maintaining those impulse buys. But what I am looking at is seeing, okay, I have children now who in 5 to 10 years will be parents, and I as a husband, as a father, as a potential grandfather in 5 to 10 years, I want to be able to interact with grandkids, and the quality of life that comes just by functional movements and functional strength is one of the driving factors behind the formulation of a product like this. Is helping people maintain good solid lean muscle mass through proper nutrition, through supplementation, if needed. In this case, that's what we're doing is supplying those two things. So keep that in mind. Functional movement and functional strength is one of those benefits that we can accomplish with peak protein. Now, I mentioned a little bit about proper body weight and proper and a healthy body weight. Well, as you lose muscle, with time, your body isn't necessarily replacing muscle with fat, but you do see this kind of curve where muscle declines and fat tends to accumulate, and you end up with the so-called dad bod or a spare tire, or maybe just a little bit of extra body weight that you don't want to have. And one of the things that protein, as a precursor or as an essential component of muscle, what we can do is help maintain healthy body weights by helping to maintain healthy muscles. What do I mean by this? I mean that when you compare basal metabolic rates as a function of body composition, um, muscles are more metabolically active, 3 times more metabolically active than fat tissue. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about how protein consumption can help maintain healthy body weight. Now, the typical this is a little bit older data, but it still is relatively good and holds relatively well. Although we're starting to see more shifts um, in our diet, in the composition of our diet. But this graph shows here what the typical standard American diet, the breakdown by macronutrient, what those percentages are. And as of 2008, and this hasn't changed too much. The majority of our diet, or at least 50% of our diet, was coming from carbohydrates. 30% coming from fats, and only about 16% coming from protein. And that's really one of the driving factors behind the formulation of this product, is understanding that if we can modulate this percentage, we can have a huge impact on body composition and body weight. And why is that? Well, a lot of that has to do with protein as a fuel. If we make protein a higher priority for fuel, for energy, then we can start to see how that will impact our body. What is that? What do I mean by this? Well, when you are consuming different types of foods, your body will initiate, just by the different ways in which we digest and metabolize carbohydrates, for example, or fats, or proteins. In some cases, there's a modest input of energy needed to break down um, carbohydrates or fats. It doesn't typically, it's not very much. I mean, you can take a piece of bread, for example, put it in your mouth, and you already have salivary enzymes and it's just breaking down bread, and bread will dissolve, and somewhat easy to break down. And fats are even a little bit easier because of how they're broken down. Proteins, however, require significant input of energy in order to digest them. I mean, we're talking about taking these long strings of amino acids, clipping them, and then going through the liver conversion processes and converting them into energy and functional uses. And it can be as high as 30% increase in thermogenesis and that thermic effect in food. So proteins are much more valuable. It requires, unlike say carbohydrates, which is a small input of energy, you're talking about 2 to 3 times more energy that your body needs in order to break down proteins. Um, a lot of that is just how quickly, and you can see how quickly proteins are absorbed and converted into energy. Excuse me. Proteins are a much better um, source of energy than carbohydrates. Um, And another way of looking at this is the hormonal impact that comes from consuming different macronutrients. If we're looking at insulin, and we really want to focus on insulin at the present moment, carbohydrates have the strongest insulinic effect of the 3 macronutrients, much less so than fats and much less so than proteins. Now, consuming proteins can produce an insulin response, but it pales in comparison to the effect of carbohydrates. And why do we care about insulin? You might be asking. Well, insulin is one of these gatekeeper hormones where elevated levels of insulin really drive, for example, the inhibition of lipolysis. Really high levels of insulin, you want to drive fat storage, and you're taking macronutrients and you're driving into fat storage. So when you have high levels of insulin and you're eating lots of carbohydrates and lots of fats, maybe you go by the local pastry shop or the donuts, the Dunkin' Donut places, which unfortunately are few and far between here in Utah. The you're really what you're creating is a fat shunt, and you're just taking energy, any sort of excess energy that your body can't use, and directing it directly into adipose tissue or fat cells. And proteins, unlike those two other macronutrients, doesn't get involved in that. So if we think about this, and we could talk more about the importance of maintaining insulin, keeping blood sugar responses in check. I just want to mention something. This is a piece of data from the New England Journal of Medicine where you're just looking at all causes of mortality and also risk factors um, for different ailments, heart failure, strokes, uh, heart attacks. What you're looking at here are three different drivers. One is blood sugar as measured by glycated hemoglobin or blood pressure, and then cholesterol. What's curious is these two factors kind of are interrelated. High levels of blood sugar increase your blood pressure. Um, and really, when you're looking at different hazard ratios, when you have high blood pressure and blood sugar, you're going to have a higher risk for stroke. Typically, those two risk factors are associated with, and we're not sure yet, but associated with. I was going to say causally, but they're definitely associated with increased body weight, obesity, and waist circumferences. Look at this graph right here, though, in section A of this graph. Just your hazard ratio from the cause of any death is dramatically increased when you have uh, out of control blood sugar levels. And so let's get back to this. What causes out of control sugar levels? Well, I mean, there's maybe a couple different factors, but certainly what we consume is. And when we know like our insulin responses are much stronger with carbohydrates than proteins or fats, there's a really strong impetus for us to start really shifting our diet and our consumption, our macronutrient consumption, away from carbohydrates and more into proteins. Um, so stop saving the Twinkies, stop saving the fat and the carbs together, and let's focus on a real solution. We need solutions that are going to keep our blood sugars in a healthy range because that keeps our insulin levels in a healthy range. But we also want something that's going to satiate us more, and proteins have this amazing ability to do that. So, with that in mind, one of the recommendations we make is make protein the primary source of fuel. Make sure that you're controlling your carbohydrate intake. And then lastly, don't be afraid of healthy fats. Don't be afraid of those things. And what we're working with now is a product that helps achieve those three directives in one. Okay. How do we do that? Well, let's talk a little bit about the components of pig protein and then what some of those benefits are. So each serving of pig protein, I happen to have a canister here with me, conveniently with me. Each serving of protein, which is 2 scoops, uh, provides you with 18 grams of whey protein isolate. Now, whey protein isolate is um, we get our whey protein from Wisconsin. It's American grown. It's non-GMO. Whey protein isolates are lower in carbohydrate content, higher in protein content. Whey protein is a complete source of amino acids and is more not just a source of it, but it's also more readily absorbed by the body than say egg protein or soy protein. In addition to that, remember, so we have the protein component. Now we're getting into two other components of the product: healthy carbohydrates or dietary fiber, and healthy fats or medium chain triglycerides. Something to note is there's no added sugars in this product. It's no artificial sweeteners and no artificial flavors. It's a delicious vanilla flavor, something that can be easily combined with other foods, other food elements. A really simple recipe that we like to do here at the Cutler home is we take 2 cups of spinach, we take a very solid, healthy dollop of peanut butter, and we mix that in with 4 scoops of pig protein and then share that around with some ice. It's delicious. We call it our Green Monster smoothie. Very flexible in that regard. Now, you might ask, well, first of all, what are medium chain triglycerides? Well, medium chain triglycerides are a source of fat. They're typically between 8 to 10 to 12 carbon links. This is your carboxyl group, and you have different carbon links that are attached to this carboxyl group. In this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so this is what constitutes a medium chain triglyceride. 8 and 9, right? So why MCTs, if you will, medium chain triglycerides versus larger, more fully saturated acids? Well, it's because of how these MCTs are absorbed. Instead of going through the traditional, or I shouldn't say traditional, the typical way of absorption, where you have long chain fatty acids and then they're absorbed in the chylomicron, and then through the lymphatic system, or they can be shunted into adipose tissue, depending again on insulin levels and a couple other factors, or they can be taken to the liver where they're broken down into complex lipids and then into medium chain fatty acids. MCTs are directly absorbed within the mitochondria, and from there they undergo beta oxidation, and they're a great source of creating ketone bodies and ATP through beta oxidation. So very healthy, doesn't adversely affect your lipid profile, your lipid panel, um, uh, and again a great source of energy for your cells. So now we have protein. Now we're combining that with good healthy fats, and we've combined that with 4 grams of dietary fiber to again help mitigate and offset this blood sugar burn, or this blood sugar spike. This might be better illustrated in this little graph. In a typical meal, where you have a lot of carbohydrates, remember 50% carbohydrates, your blood sugar spikes, and your insulin levels will spike as well. And you have the so-called sugar crash, where your blood sugar then, in response to the insulin, will be absorbed into your cells and out of the bloodstream. Well, when you have protein and you mitigate, then you combine that with healthy fats and fibers. What you have is a smoothing out of this big blood sugar spike, a blood sugar peak, and you start to have this smoothing out of blood sugar, and something that parallels a little bit more the response, your insulinic response, with your blood sugar response. In a couple different studies in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, the combination of whey protein and fiber increases satiety, meaning it satisfies hunger, it gives some sustained, longer, more prolonged sustained energy, and helps the body burn fat. Now, you might ask yourself, man, how much protein should I be consuming? Well, it really depends on your activity level. This is a fairly generic, but sound recommendation. For every gram, you should be consuming at least a gram of protein for every it's really kilogram of body weight. So if you weigh 150 pounds, um, which is really 75 kilos, then your target um, protein consumption should be right around 75 grams a day. This oh shoot, boy, this clearly didn't take into account that conversion. If you're more active and you're really getting after it, working out and lifting, or being really physically active, then you can hit this two grams per kilo, which is really more along the lines of 150 grams to 100 to 150 grams a day if you're 150 pounds or 75 kilos. So we'll adjust this little recommendation here. Again, each serving 18 grams. Think about this: if your target, if you are in a weight loss situation, you want to reduce weight, so your protein consumption should mimic what your target weight will be. So if let's say you're 300 pounds and you want to get to 200 pounds, okay, so you're looking at about 100 grams of protein a day. Take 200 divided by 2, rough conversion into kilos. And you should be targeting about 30 to 40 grams of protein per meal, if you can get that. So how do you do that? Well, you can eat a lot of fish, chicken, steaks if you don't mind red meat, and red meat's actually a great source of protein. Another great way of doing that is just adding this. It's 18 grams per serving. It's a really simple way to up your protein content. It's a delicious shake, and is really fascinating. Now, some of you might be concerned about, well, I'm intolerant to dairy. Well, I have some great news for you, because we really want everyone to have the benefit of peak protein. So we're right now in the formulation process of a plant-based peak protein option, and we're hoping that'll be available in the next 3 to 4 months. Um, Things have tended to slow down a little bit because of the COVID-19, so we're doing our best, and our partners are doing their best as well to help us in the development and the manufacturing process. So keep that on your calendars, though. We do have a plant-based option that's in the works and will be here shortly, and so just make sure that you're aware and you've got that available. Um, in conclusion, if you're interested in pig protein, contact the person who recommended it to you, and for more information. We don't sell this in the grocery stores. You're welcome to come to our website for more information, but definitely make sure you get back in contact with the person who invited you to this call and invited you to this live, um, and make sure that you get more information and the opportunity to try it. It's a great product. And we're excited. We're excited to be able to share that with you. For any more questions, feel free to put them in the comment section below, and we will be able to. We'll make sure that we take a good look, and make sure that we're making sure that we have the answers to your questions. And as always, we're really grateful for your being here. I know you have other things you like to do, but we're grateful. We're grateful for your attendance, and stay safe. Make sure that you're doing the right things, and get some peak protein so you're not getting into that Corona 15, if you know what I mean. Okay, until next week, I'm going to sign off. Thomas Cutler, wishing you adieu, and again, thank you so much for all that you do, and for who you are. Appreciate it. All the best, and we'll talk to you later.